Back third down on the 8. In trouble. Got a block behind him. Going to throw and a run complete to the 25, to the 30. Lindsey's got 35, 40. Lindsey's got 45, 50, 45, 40. Run, Lindsey. 25, 20, 15, 10, 5. Lindsey stop. Lindsey stop. Lindsey stop.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to Dogs Down South. Glad you're able to join us tonight. It is a Tuesday night. Yeah, I had to think about that. It's Tuesday night. I'm your host, Ted Turner, here with the Fish Man, Adam Fish. What's up, buddy? How are you?
What's up, man? How you doing? And it's Wednesday.
Dude, it's Wednesday. Who slows the weekend? That would be me. What am I thinking, bro? That is crazy.
It feels like Tuesday. It feels like Tuesday. It's like, oh my God, I'm under this mountain. I can't get up from underneath it.
Dude, 100%, man. That's nuts, man. How have you been, Fish?
Good, man. Good. Work's been a little extra stressful this week, but other than that, it's been an okay week.
I hear you, bro. I hear you, man. But look, we get to talk some Georgia football tonight, so that's always cool.
Yes, sir.
We hadn't gone on in a couple weeks, man. We're drawing closer to kickoff, and so we get a chance to. This is our last show before we hop into SEC preview, which is always fun. SEC preview, where we'll preview all 16 SEC teams as we enter into the season. Maybe invite some fans. Maybe putting some calls out there soon to get some of these Auburn, Alabama, Tennessee. I don't know. Get some of these fans in here to see what they think about their team this year coming into 2024. We are 72 days till Georgia kicks off versus Clemson. Exciting or not? 72 days, man. We are refrigerator Perry. For everybody else, that was the most giant Bears defensive tackle / running back of a man that I ever saw. So 72 days, refrigerator Perry until Clemson. Yep. How excited are you, Fish?
I'm great. Very excited, man. And hey, don't worry, because some of their teams start winning during the season, they'll be coming out the woodwork.
Yeah, I agree, man. I agree. We might be hiding. I don't know. We might be hiding, and they'll be like, "Man, come on, where's the show at? Bring them on so we can
Who
talk."
Knows? No, we're good. Y'all.
Yeah, exactly, man. Exactly. Well, cool, man. Hey, we're live tonight on Facebook. I know a lot of you guys that are maybe tuning in tonight. Got Dogs Down South to 100 followers. Thank you very much. Whether you like Georgia football or not, thanks for the support.
Yes, sir.
All these streaming legalities lately are just ridiculous. But hey, thanks to everybody for jumping in and answering the call. And you know what? You should tune in every once in a while. We don't just talk football. It's actually some pretty good comedy every once in a while, and might be having some familiar faces on here that you might know. So thank you for that. We're live on Facebook tonight. Dogs Down South. We're also on YouTube tonight, and then 24 hours from tonight, we'll be on Apple Podcasts. You can catch us on your ride in, Spotify, Samsung Podcast, you name it, Podbean, anything that has a podcast, we're on it. And if we're not, make sure you message me and tell me about it because we'll get on it. So, dude, let's hop in, man. So, hopping right in, man. Let's get a controversial topic on the table. So, dog fans out there, if you haven't heard, we had a little Jalen Milroe, quarterback of Alabama, interview, and Jalen Milroe decided to express some comments that is going to be incredible bulletin board material for the Dogs this year. And I will quote this. I'll quote this from Jalen. He talked about how he was big on body language. And he was looking into the opponents, which is Georgia's eyes. This is during the SEC championship. And they looked defeated. They didn't want anymore. And I knew that our team knew it was going to be a 60-minute game, and Georgia didn't believe in that. Man, Jalen Milroe, man. And, as we know, Fish, I'll let you hop in on this, but we know Nick Saban would have never let this mess out, right? So Jalen doesn't get to say this if Nick Saban's there this year. But, you got Kalen DeBoer there. You got some bulletin board material. Georgia now, obviously going into Tuscaloosa, 3-4 games into the year. What kind of bulletin board material and what does this add to this kind of, I guess per se, rivalry now in the SEC fish.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a rivalry, whether we like it or not, whether Bama likes it or not. But this is a good example of this is one of those things that Saban would not have let happen. This is evidence of the regime change or whatever. It's maybe it's not as, I don't know. He's running things a little looser, I guess, giving players a little more freedom to talk to the media and stuff like that, which would be a good thing or a bad thing. Like I said, I don't really know a lot about Kalen DeBoer outside of his Washington tenure, and I didn't really follow him that much. So I don't know what he's about really, but this is just one of those things that could backfire really, really huge in his face, because I know Kirby's going to have this posted all over the place.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I can't imagine. And, everybody that watched that game, I mean, we could spend a whole hour tonight on talking about that game in general. There was a lot of things there, but I'm going to kind of attribute this in a quick way to what the NBA finals were this year. In the NBA playoffs in general, the NBA playoffs were there was a huge injury fest, man. A lot of teams didn't get their best shots because a lot of teams were extremely injury plagued. And although I think Boston maybe deserved it, we're not going to go off on an NBA tangent here, but I do think that Boston didn't get everybody's best team. They got a huge, per se easy gauntlet, if you call it. But I think that was how it was when we played Alabama. I mean, you look at the SEC championship and you look at the injuries, you look at Ladd, you look at Brock. As much as we tried to get them full tilt, it never really happened. You look at the O-line taking some hits in that game. Before that game, you looked at Smile, who was, now we're learning all these things. Smile was nursing an industry that, that he was not full go. We had, Malachi Starks, who now you look at and see he needed surgery the entire last 4 to 5 weeks of the season last year. And so you're just kind of seeing all this played out, and it kind of makes sense now, right? And so for Jalen Milroe to come in there, and we're going to talk about some things here in a little bit about the make or breaks for every SEC team, because this will be kind of before we preview the SEC teams, and we'll have enough to talk about week to week when the season starts. This will be our last couple kind of stabs at previewing the SEC and talking a lot about how we see the SEC falling this year. But, Jalen Milroe, I just believe in a year like this, and I'll let you kind of chime in, that you're coming into with no uncertainties. He's obviously excited. He's got a lot of morale built up because they're going to play off the bulletin board material of everybody that left and didn't believe in us. Or, we're going to show them what we're made of. But let's just be honest, this is not already on paper. This is not the Alabama teams of old. And so to give that bulletin board material, to me, it's just Kalen DeBoer's first. He needs to really hone this in really quickly. Otherwise, it's going to not only give bulletin board material, but media is going to be having a lot of negative banter before they open up the season against some of their opponents. Would you agree?
Dude, I don't. He must have turned into Jalen Hurts in the offseason. I mean, he's definitely got some swagger, some cockiness going on right here. This is, I don't know. If I was him, I don't know if I'd be that confident, because he's not really sure what he's got coming back either. I mean, he knows better than I do.
Right.
But, on paper, at least, it's not the same. Like you said, it's not the same Bama teams that we're used to seeing, coming in and out every year. So, I don't know. I think he needs to be a little more cautious.
Yeah, I agree. And, as we get into, we're 72 days out, we're right around the corner from SEC Media Days, which we're going to talk about here soon. But I just feel like the SEC in general needs to be focused on not what we're talking about anymore, but what's kind of progressing into in this part of the year. And, if you're living in that season, Kirby's already said it. If the Dog fans think that last year was a success in any right, we took a step back last year in Kirby's eyes. And so whether you like it or not as a Dog fan, and you can see some great things that happened last year. That one-loss team was a failure in Kirby's eyes. And so it's not the material you want to give to a team that's hungry, to a team that has some depth coming back, to a team that's added some depth in the portal, and I think has developed better or as good or better than any team in the country. And so it's a deadly comment to say. Moving on with some really good news. Just in the last 24, 48 hours, 5-star Justice Terry decommitted from USC. A lot build up around this. This is a big athletic kid. They're kind of saying 5+ stars. I mean, that's incredible, right? So this is a big kid, physical kid, defensive lineman who committed out of the Georgia area to USC. Decommits from USC, and so automatically you think, from Georgia was in the mix before he committed. I'm almost getting to the point where, unfortunately, I don't believe a lot in these early commits, right? They're more just like pledges, it's like they're kind of pledging it. Yeah, it's just news. I agree. It's things to talk about. But some things that you can look at around it is, does Justice Terry end up at Georgia, which will be a huge get to a recruiting class that's already building up to be very, very nice, top 5 in the country right now. But this also brings another topic that we can just kind of skim through for today. But we brought up Juju earlier in the year, and this kind of starts to tread a path of, does Juju do the same? Does he decommit, or is this not necessarily mean Montgomery committed not too long ago, and he seems like a guy that's going to stick to that. Barring that, there's not a barrage of 5-star quarterback signees coming to Georgia that we don't know about. But does this change Juju a little bit? Because there's been a lot of conversation about him going to Colorado and being the next layer of Shedeur Sanders to Deion. And he's been visiting Colorado a lot. Or does he stay the path? Does he stay the path with USC? Does he go to Colorado? Does he end up at Georgia? I don't know. Is this a package deal? What do you think, Fish? You think, when you heard the news about Justice Terry, did you automatically think this was now Georgia's in play?
I honestly don't put a lot of stock into these extra early commitments because it's just one of those new things. It's like, NIL and transfer portal and all that. This is part of the new era of college football. It's just gives people something to talk about, gives people something to do. It gives fans something to bicker about, argue about, talk about. There's no telling. He could change his mind 3 or 4 times between now and actually signing day. There's no telling. I mean, it just depends on what he wants. I know Georgia's pretty full. Behind Shedeur, I don't know what Colorado's got going on. And as far as USC goes, he's probably going to have a shot at more playing time out there. It just depends on what he wants. Does he want to win? Does he want to develop? Does he want clicks? Right. It's up to him.
Right. Yeah. And, not a lot of quarterback action right now. There's a lot of quarterbacks that are committed, but you're not seeing. Quarterbacks right now are becoming free agents, right? And it's like they're looking around. There's money involved. This is your first. Yeah, of course. And this year you're actually seeing a lot of NIL throughout the entire, college sports, collegiate sports. You're looking at basketball, obviously. I don't even know if we're going to recognize our basketball team next year. The turnover. I've heard good things, but I don't know if we're going to recognize anything other than our point guard. And so baseball, obviously, just coming off a tough loss to NC State. A lot of depth. I think Charlie would be crazy not to go pro. And there might be a deal in the works to be like, hey, what does that look like? The trajectory of, am I AAA and then I'm 6 months in, or I think it has a lot to do with that. You never know. If he goes to a team that there's so much stuff different than baseball than football and basketball, because those picks are way different. And the Charlie's a little bit of I don't say an older guy, but he's not your 17 or 18-year-old coming out of high school going into AAA.
No, so he's a grown man out there with him.
Yeah. So I don't know, man. But you're looking at sports in general. You're looking at softball players going in, for NIL deals. You get the National Softball Player of the Year decommitting hitting the portal from Stanford, and now obviously seeking out what money. She had playing time. Stanford's a pretty competitive team every year. So are we chasing money? Do we know our value type thing? So I do know that Justice Terry's going to look at this, but I think this had to be can we mix? Is the money worth it? Am I going out to Southern California and taking this money? And at the end of the day, he's also seeing what Georgia has produced. I know that that's in the back of his mind, and he's seeing NFL draft stock. I mean, you're hearing nothing but great things about Ladd and Brock as far as their NFL. I mean, Ladd just signed an incredible contract with the Chargers, so obviously he's impressed right off jump. I mean, comments from Herbert are, I mean, the guy looks like he's been a 5-6 year vet. I mean, he knows where to be. He knows the routes. He knows he goes about it like a pro. You look at Brock. I think Devontae Adams has already nicknamed Brock Bowers BM, which I was curious what that meant, and he calls him businessman. So he's like, man, he's all business, dude. And this is just something that you're seeing more and more come out of Kirby's area when it happens. I mean, so players are going to see this. They're going to see how incredibly serious that these teams take these players, and it's going to definitely build up a reason to be at Georgia. So excited about the future. Justice Terry is incredible. He's that game changer guy that I think that when you look at our defensive line, we're going to be very competitive this year, but we're going to find out if we're still going to be missing a Jalen Carter or a Jordan Davis or things of that nature really, really early on, because we have a lot of good competition right early on and throughout our schedule, obviously. But maybe that means something if Justice signs with Georgia. That'd be a great get. And if Juju followed, I'm all about it, man. Juju's a game changer athlete, so I wouldn't mind it at all. But let's hop into a couple things, man. SEC Media Days is around the corner. We are slowly but surely dwindling our 72 days down. And so that means
100.
Yeah, man. It felt like 100 was like 100 days ago.
It does. I feel like it was in February.
Yeah, like I thought when I was looking it up yesterday, it was getting out the material we were going to talk about to you. I was like, man, I mean 72 days is good.
I'm telling you, AGT started 2 weeks ago, boy. It's downhill. It's all downhill from here.
I hope so, because I thought I would be writing like 50, but I'm not. The good thing is I'm writing like less than 30 for NCAA college football. So that's a good thing.
Yes.
That'll keep us there. We're going to get to that first. So
little appetizer before the season.
Dude, I'm so excited for college football, man. Like it's the only thing that's going to get me. And then SEC preview, because we get to, it's like a countdown, right?
Yeah.
So
exactly.
So we count down to Georgia and preview Georgia, hopefully a few days before Georgia Clemson. So it's going to be fun, man. Let's hop into some stuff tonight. Let's have some fun. Before we get into this, for all our listeners out there, as you hop in, we're going to get into position groups in the SEC that we think will make or break all 16 SEC teams. That's going to be the meat and potatoes tonight. But before we do that, obviously, let's get into SEC Media Days. Let's talk about, Fish, let's get excited. Like, obviously, that's the next thing on the slate after NCAA football. So I know I got some things written down, and I know I shared them with you, and you might have wrote some things down, but let's share some things that we're most looking forward to with SEC Media Days. And Fish, I'll let you go first in this. Like, what are you looking forward to? Some headlines from Media Days that will kind of just fill in some time for you to kind of make it to through 72 days. What are you looking forward to?
Dude, I love Media Days. I look forward to it. I listen to every one of the coaches, all the coaches. Not so much the player interviews outside of Georgia, but last year I was listening to Clark Lee. It didn't matter who it was. If they were talking, I was listening. Like, I want to hear what they have to say. It's just, it's content. It's college football. It's getting closer and closer and closer. I mean, I don't care if they talk about their golf game. I'm listening.
Right.
It doesn't matter to
right.
me. I'm on the edge of my seat, and I'm just excited about it, dude. I can't wait. These little milestones, like Media Days and, NCAA coming out, I do countdowns to those instead of countdowns to in that way it's just shorter and shorter and shorter. And then when I look up, hey, we're 20 days out. NFL preseason has started. And it's just, I can't wait, man. I'm pumped. I'm super excited.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. I agree. A couple things I wrote down that I'm really excited to hear from. I'll give you my first one. I'm always excited. This will be the first SEC media days where everybody won't be like, well, what did Nick Saban say? This will be our first Nick Saban less
I know
media days,
I know.
man.
It's Kirby's throne now.
Yeah, bittersweet, man. The serious throne, what you would say, right? Because I know I jotted down here, I would say I have it number 2 on my list, but number 1 thing I'm most excited to see is Lane Kiffin. Just to hear his dialogue and the fact of how he rags everybody else around him. But this is important for Lane this year because for the first time since he was at USC, he's now expected to win, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how does that look for Lane this year? And at SEC Media Days, like he's fielding questions. He's no longer the guy that's in the corner and he can crack the jokes and talk about how, at Ole Miss, we don't have to worry about that because we don't get the players Nick Saban does, yada, yada, yada. But it's like, all right, man, like you just went out and dropped a few $1 million, that's saying a little, on these players. And now you have some expectations and you have some things on your back that say you're a top 2, top 3 team in the SEC this year, not barring schedule. So we're going to get into this, but barring schedule, you're a top 2, top 3 team. So there's expectations to win. So how does Lane deal with that and not have to just worry about being happy-go-lucky with the media day questions? What do you think? Like, you think he's going to be a little bit different of a Lane Kiffin because now there's an expectation for him to win?
We might get serious Lane this year at media days. He might not crack jokes. He might not talk about the group chat, that him and Kirby and whoever else have. It's funny. I don't know. That'll tell us a lot about his mindset going into the season.
Right.
If he's cracking jokes up there at media day, deflecting, answers instead of giving direct answers to questions and stuff like that. Like, we'll know how worried he is. We'll know, where his mind's at, where he thinks his team's at. It'll be a lot easy. It'll be easy to tell in the way he's acting and, answering these questions.
I agree. And I'm wondering, it kind of sets the tone for them and their summer practices because it's going to kind of give you a rendition of like, if you kind of see that chink in his armor, like he's always going to try and be as lighthearted about it as he can. I think you see the intensity in him. You see the Kirby and the Nick in him, Saban in him when it comes down to his players not getting a fair shake, when you get officials, when you get crowd things, those things that, I go back to the days of when Nick Saban used to call out the student section and say, hey, like, these players, this, and believe me, I think you're going to hear a lot less of that because you're going to have a lot of students looking at them going, I don't really care what you're talking about because there's enough NIL money that should motivate them to play. I don't have to yell because they have millions of dollars. Yeah. So there's no more of those excuses, but it'll set the tone. I really am curious to see how he reacts to some of the questions. I think he's going to get some questions about, that might trigger him a little bit to the terms of, hey, like now you're expected to be able to hang or beat the Alabamas. Now Nick Saban is not your blot. Like, what does that look like for you now? And we're gonna know really quickly how much he's thought about this because it could set the tone for the beginning of the year in the wrong direction for Lane because we all know Lane's a little bit of a head case in some areas,
Well, he coaches with a what do I got to lose attitude. Like he's got nothing to lose, like no expectations. He doesn't have to win these games, If he goes out and he beats a Georgia or upsets Alabama or somebody like that, hey, he's on top of the mountain,
I agree.
Now I think he is coaching with something to lose because all these people have invested all this money into the program now. And, he's got not just one, boss. He's got a bunch of people that are like, where's my money going? What are you doing with my money? This is not what, the deal was. We're supposed to win these games, not lose these games now.
Yeah, I see him at these these like events where donors are there and him just kind of ducking around corners going, dude, if I don't win, these jokers are going to be trying to find me to go have that
The
cocktail with
Wolves
and
will
be
be
like,
after
bro,
him.
yeah, bro, I just dropped a check on you last year. Like, what are you doing? So I don't know, man. It's going to tell the tape a lot. Another thing I'm looking forward to is, I mean, Billy Napier's obviously been on the hot seat a lot. When summer meetings, you know, a lot of questions about the Jaden Rashada news, things of that nature. So I'm curious to see how they take on Billy Napier at media days, because in my opinion, he's the guy that you can look at, and as you start to fire the questions out, you know, you start to look and go, hey, like, what are you thinking about your team this year? What are you thinking about the talent you have? Is this a year where you're really playing for your job, you know, type thing? And not to mention the fact that he has a very difficult schedule, if not the toughest schedule in the SEC. But what will he say? How will he take on the? I think you're going to hear a lot about the brutal schedule for Florida, and if they're mentally, physically prepared. And do you think this is? I think he's going to hear this a lot. Do you think you're coaching for your job this year?
Yeah.
Do you think you're playing for your job? Well, how do you think Billy's going to? How do you think Billy's going to take that? And do you think that's going to negatively impact summer practice?
I think he's counting down the days to media days as well, but for a completely different reason. I don't think he's excited about answering these questions and talking to people, because it's kind of setting up for him. Like, this could be one of the worst, like, disasters in his life. Like, it's just, he's got such a mountain to climb, you know, to just keep his job. Not, you know, that schedule is ridiculous. There's this lawsuit. You know, he's going to have to answer these questions again, you know, because I'm sure they just grilled him about it in Destin, you know. So when they get to media day, they're going to do it again, because he's up there for what, 45 minutes, you know, like everybody gets
like
to ask
3
him
hours.
questions. I know it's going to seem like the longest interview of his life. I guarantee it. Like, and I don't, he talks to the media and everything, but just, you know, notice when he does, he's not excited to be talking to the media ever. You know, so I just think I don't know. I feel bad for him. I really do, because Florida is under the microscope right now. And I don't know. Like,
definitely.
He's got coaching for his job this year.
Yeah, I agree. I think he definitely is telling them to put my clock on 44 minutes and 59 seconds. not a second more and a second less.
Yeah.
So, and then, you know, there's a lot of topics, but like, I think of Hugh Freeze. I'm interested to hear from Hugh this year. You know, I know he's going to get a lot about what to expect coming into year 2, and we're going to talk about each team in a second. But, you know, a lot of things are going to be asked of Hugh is, do you think you have a more complete team this year? And, you know, do you think Auburn can get back to relevance? Because they had flashes of, oh, this is the guy for Auburn this year. And then you had flashes of going, okay, who's pulling his pocket right now? Like, is this 2 quarterback system? Like, what is this all about? Is this actually Hugh, or is this Auburn? And we all know Auburn, you know, Auburn has come down the controversial pipeline with their last coach, where there are a lot of big money, big pocket guys that got involved.
They meddle.
Yeah. So my thing is, and what do you think? And I know you have some ties to Auburn in your household a little bit too, Fish. Like, what do you think Hugh Freeze has got to, you know, win or lose by, as far as the SEC media days, and as far as what, you know, he wants the world to know about his team coming into 2024?
I have to be nice. So,
yeah.
Happy wife, happy life.
Yep.
No. I want Auburn to be relevant again. You know, I mean, he's got some pressure on him, I'm sure, but yeah, I don't get the 2 quarterback system, because it never works. Not anymore. I mean, not teams that win, you know, regularly, consistently. They don't run the 2 QB system. Georgia could run the 2 QB system if they wanted to. You know,
I agree.
You know, Carson in for passing situations, bring Gunner in, you know, on 1st and goal, you know, on the 5 or something like that, you know, so he can run an option or whatever. You know, but they don't, because it's dumb. You know, it just doesn't work anymore. And I know he was smarter than that.
Right.
You know, or at least I'd like to think he is. You know, because he's had success everywhere he goes. You know, he wins games. And I want Auburn to be back to where they're one of those teams where you never know if you're going to win or lose when you play them. You know, even if you're picked to win. You know, Auburn is famous for upsetting teams down there on the plains, and you know, I'm sure that the people, the money, the fans, everybody would love to see them get back to relevance again. Yeah. So, you know, but it's only year 2 for him. He's not gonna have a short leash this year, you know. But if he doesn't win, you know, let them finish under 500, then yeah, next year he's definitely on the hot seat.
Yeah, because I mean, I think you look at it too, and coaches can't really be drawn out that long anymore. I mean, that's kind of why Billy's like on the hot. I mean, and we'll get into during preview days, like, you know, who he thinks on the hot seat, so forth, so on. But like, NIL is so relevant now, and you can build a team off NIL. That's why you got to look at some of these coaches and go, you don't have 5 years anymore. You know, you don't have, you know, Sam Pittman type years anymore, good old boy years. And so I don't know. I like Hugh Freeze. I was high on Hugh Freeze last year. I think he's a great coach. I think he can build a good team. I think some parts of me think that leaving him alone would be healthy. And we're going to talk about Auburn here in a little bit, but I'm interested to see what he has to say. I can read Hugh. I mean, I know they had a couple of meltdowns in the latter part of last year that I looked at Hugh, and it just, something told me that he wasn't calling all the shots. And I don't know what shot that was, but I definitely know it. He wasn't, let's just put it this way, he wasn't lonely at the end of the year last year. So interesting. Very interesting. So let's hop in, man. Position groups that will make or break all 16 SEC teams. Really, really good topic because it gets us right into kind of previewing the SEC, right? So when you look at the SEC and you look at what's coming down the pipeline, there's a lot of things that you can be excited about. There's also, as strong as the SEC is, there's still going to be parts of their entire team that either has to show up and grow up, or it could be the Achilles heel of why they don't do as well as they want to do. So let's hop right in. We're going to start out. We're going to do this in alphabetical order. So let's hop in with Alabama first. Fish, I got some things down here. We'll kind of go back and forth on this, but who do you think? Let's let you go out of the box. Who do you think, as far as Alabama's position group, what do you think the position is that's going to make or break them in 2024? As far as whether they have a really incredible season or it falters, what position group do you think is going to kind of call that?
Definitely that smack talking quarterback, right?
Okay.
Like he's got to come out there and back it all up, right? Like he has no choice now. You know, like he's throwing down the gauntlet. He's talking, you know, he's running his mouth instead of playing football. So, you know, he needs to come out and shine. And I wouldn't want Georgia's defense mad at me sitting there for the first 3 games of the season, just, you know, grinding their teeth, you know, getting ready, you know, to come into my home and just chase me all over the place, because you know they're going to be after that man.
Yeah, you know, I can agree with that to some extent. I think, you know, so you're saying Alabama only goes as far as Jalen Milroe goes in 2024?
I believe.
Yeah, I like that. I think there's some credit there, and I think there's going to be 2 or 3 position groups that at any point in time we could be right or wrong about. But I actually had it was a little hard for me because, you know, as we preview the SEC soon, you're going to see that within some of these teams, you know, there's a little bit to talk about. There is some chinks in their armor per se. But I look at Alabama, and the thing that jumped out to me first was the secondary for Alabama, right?
Oh yeah.
So 4 or 5 starters in the secondary leave to either the NFL or the portal, and obviously Caleb Downs heads out to Ohio State. But then the biggest thing that caught me when I was actually looking and tearing down numbers was, and I'll let you chime in on this, is, you know, Nick Saban coached that secondary. That was his baby. Let's call it babies, but that was his baby, you know, was a secondary. He kind of had a lot of intel which is a huge reason that I think Therese Robinson came to Georgia was at that time, like he didn't know what was going on. But what do you think about the secondary? Because I think that this is something that you're looking at rebuilding in the SEC.
Yeah.
You know, you got Carson Beck, you got Quinn Ewers, you got Brady Cook. You're going to see all these guys, and that secondary better not be bottom tier per se.
They can't afford to be.
Yeah.
You're right. You're absolutely right. The secondary is super important, and you might not see a lot of drop off as far as scheme and everything goes. You know, the first year, you know, that D coordinator is probably not going to want to change everything. You know, and why would you? All you got to do is keep the Cadillac running. Right. You know, you don't want to change everything. You don't want to, you know, drop it to the ground and throw some, just leave it alone. You know, just don't make any major changes. You know, I don't know, but they lost a lot of talent.
Yeah, there's some chinks in the armor. There's some chinks in the armor at Alabama, and we're going to talk about them, you know, in a later show. But you know, it was tough between them, and not a lot of people realize this, but they had a little bit of a rebuilt offensive line. Do they have some portal transfers? Yes. You know, they lost the center, which I thought was wild. I mean, it really was true. It was all over that snap, right?
Yeah.
That fatal snap in the national championship game.
Oh my
or
God.
no, I'm sorry, the game against Washington. Yeah,
I bet you he was getting trolled something serious.
Yeah, 100%.
Like,
so he gets out of there. They lose a couple of players to the draft, and next thing you know, you're sitting here and you're relying on your second tier of linemen and one, you know, the per se the glue that's going to hold it together is a stud transfer from Washington who hasn't played in the SEC for 12, 13 games. So that could have been a definite area too. Let's move on to Arkansas. I'll hop in on this one first. So as far as Arkansas is concerned, I feel like you know, you look at so many different things. You look at new quarterback Taylor Green, who's looks exciting from Boise State. You look at a revamped Bobby Petrino offense. I think you could pick on the defense a little bit in some areas, but I don't know about you, but KJ Jefferson ran for his life last year, and if Taylor Green has to run for his life like Jefferson did, I'm picking the offensive line for Arkansas. If they can't block, it's not going to matter, which is crazy, right? Because Sam Pittman, he's an offensive line guru. So my thing is,
what I was about to say.
My thing is, and you can hop in on this, is like, I don't know, man. If they're not doing well and the offensive line is the problem, that's kind of a twofold reason to send Sam on his way this year. He's an offensive line guy. The offensive line, if it looks atrocious, it's going to be a main reason why Arkansas will be atrocious, even though I do think, not to give some early hints, that I think they're still going to be atrocious. But what do you think? You got something the same or different for Arkansas?
I'm gonna lean towards that as well, because that'll also affect the QB, which would be the easy answer, which is yes, this guy has to come in and do well. You know, Taylor Green, but you know, he can't do well if he's running for his life. You know, I don't care how mobile you are or what you can do. You know, like KJ Jefferson was a stud, and he couldn't muster any offense last year. He didn't have time. And yeah, that's wild, because that's Sam Pittman's thing. That's his specialty. You know, you would think like Kirby's a defensive guy, so our defense is always 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the nation, always. And so, you know, that's why these certain coaches get hired, you know, and, you know, Arkansas wants to ground and pound. They want to, you know, be a big physical dominant team. They want to have that big physical offensive line, and it's just been non-existent for the past couple seasons.
Yeah, newsflash, I'm going to go ahead and tell you and give you a little preview to future shows. Sam Pittman is probably between him and Billy Napier on my list of hot seat, burning hot pocket coaches this year. Poor guy. But I think Pittman, I think these two guys, and don't quote me for saying this, but I think these two guys are phenomenal coordinators. I think Pittman is at an age where I think his wife would appreciate him being at home a little more and a little bit more focused on an area. He does know offensive line, but he obviously doesn't have the chance to just hop into practice and coach the offensive lineman up like he would want to as a position coach. Now look at Billy, and it's like, yeah, you've had some success as a, you know, non-Power 5 school coach, but it's not transferring right now. And I don't know what it is.
SEC is different.
Yeah. And I think it's just the management. I think it's the bigger level management for him.
Yeah.
You either got to do it or you got to find somebody to do it. And I don't think he knew how to do either. So
just ask Will Muschamp, one of the
Yeah.
most famous coordinators, going to a head coach and bombing. He
Yeah.
tried it at 2 SEC schools,
Yeah.
and it didn't work. Couldn't do it. So then he went back to being one of the best coordinators in the SEC. You know, because that's what he's meant to do. That's what he should be doing. Because coaching is different. You know, not all these coordinators are going to transfer up there and, you know, take that step and, you know, be good at it. Like, it's
I
hard.
agree.
It's different.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Let's move to Auburn. I'll let you go first, Fish. Who do you think is going to make or break Auburn this year?
Again, you know, quarterback is the layup, you know, but I don't want to say Peyton Thorne, but his wide receivers, you know, he's got to be throwing the ball to somebody.
Right.
You know, he's got to have somebody step up and be that guy. They got to transfer in from Penn State, right?
Yep.
So
yeah, we got DeAndre Lambert from Penn State, who's going to add some help for Cam Coleman. Even though Cam Coleman's a talent, he's a freshman, right?
Yeah.
Finish what you were saying there.
But yeah, you know, I mean, he's got to have someone to throw the ball to. You know, as far as the offense goes, that's what Hugh does, and we were just talking about that. You know, these coaches who specialize in certain areas, you know, that's the part of that team that needs to shine. You know, because at least they're doing that right.
Right.
You know, at least they got that going on. You know, if they're not winning all their games, you know, if they're 7-6 or whatever at the end of the year, 7-5, you know, just scraping by, getting into a bowl, you know, if they're doing what they're supposed to do, that'll help them a little bit. But, you know, and offense is his thing. So that really needs to improve as a whole, in my opinion. But I think the O-line will be okay. The running back, they're going to have some good running backs.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I agree with you on the wide receiver position. That was my choice too. 20 drops last season. Just drops. Just dropped the ball. Got to correct that, right? I think Cam Coleman's going to be an extremely good talent. I think DeAndre Lambert, Penn State, is going to be helpful. But they're going to depend on him a lot. Robert Lewis from Georgia State. These are three guys that are going to come in with a lot of game experience. Can they help and this is an already challenged Peyton Thorne. So there's a lot of, I think he's coming in and he wanted this year, but there's no dual quarterback system this year. It's from what I'm understanding, it's Peyton Thorne's offense. And so I have the receivers as well. Welcome in everybody. Travis King, what's up, man? Justice Terry and Isaiah Gibson. Yeah, man, we hit it at the beginning of the show. You're late. No, I'm just playing. We talked about Justice Terry decommitting and talked about, actually, was it a play for Juju to possibly decommit from USC and head, I don't know, maybe head to Colorado. He's been seeing Dion a lot. Or is this something where you look at the plays, do they come as a combo? I think Justice Terry's a 5+ star guy. And so, we talked about it a little bit earlier. As you go back and listen, you can hop in, but welcome in and hope to hang out tonight. Let's move on. Florida. Pretty easy for Florida, in my opinion. I didn't hop around too much on this with Florida. I got the secondary. I feel like there's a lot of ways you could go with this. They lost a lot in the receiving core as well. Ricky Pearsall was an incredible talent for them. Obviously, Trevor Etienne coming to Georgia, you lose that. Quarterback is a strength for them, I think, this year, because regardless, you have a Graham Mertz, who I think is a really great game manager. But I don't know if they need a game manager this year. You might see DJ Lagway in the game, and in these games, probably 4 or 5 games in, and it might be his season after that, just to kind of not get him too far behind as far as what does the following year look like, because you leave Graham Mertz in there for 11, 12 games in a bowl, you might have a discouraged DJ Lagway who hits the portal. So it's a little bit different of a game, nowadays if you're losing some football games. Secondary, huge, tons of big plays last year. I put down eliminate big plays. 1 fourth-year starter returning in the secondary. That's it. secondary is brand new in all areas, regardless of whether it's you don't see that much though, right? A 4-year starter hanging around, started as a freshman, ended as a freshman, so you don't see it much. But among other things, like they're going to need strong play from the other pieces of their secondary that's all new to Florida. Who you got, Fish? What do you think as far as Florida?
Yeah, I think, like I said, like you said, they did lose some, some offensive pieces, but every team goes through that. But I don't know. ETN might be a lot to get out from underneath. Losing him, that's a lot of their production. Down on offense last season. That's going to be tough for them, especially looking for Graham Mertz, who you said it, not me, game manager.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He's going to need to be more than that.
Yeah,
I think he's going to have to pick up some of that slack. Because he's going to have to deliver some dimes and hope he gets at least 3 or 4 yards a carry out of whoever's behind him. To take some of that pressure off of it.
Yeah, and a Billy Napier offense too. We know a Billy Napier offense is not built around a game manager. It's built around dual threat. It's actually a more centered around DJ Lagway's kind of his build, his game. So we'll see. We'll see how that pans out. I don't think you can take the ball away from Graham Mertz. I think he did a really good job last year of kind of just keeping things together and not having a meltdown season type thing. But Florida's going to be interesting, man. They have a tough schedule. So let's hop into Georgia. I'll let you go first, Fish. What do you think? What do you think is going to make or break Georgia this year?
I mean, the only chink in the armor seems like the secondary to me. Attrition, though, on all of our position groups. I know that's not the question, but that was a big part of our one loss last year. Like, I don't care what anybody says, Brock Bowers was 50-60%, and Ladd McConkey may have been the same. And then, they were out there contributing a little bit, but no yak, no yard after contact. They're catching the ball, getting hit, falling down. They're not running. They're not making a move. They're not making a cut. Brock wasn't getting that game-saving first down like he did against Ohio State, where they zoomed in and his knee was literally like an inch off the ground,
right.
Where he's just flying over, skirting over the out-of-bounds line. That was a big part. We couldn't score. We couldn't move the ball, and it seemed like we might have been defeated because, we were like, nothing we were doing was working.
Yeah.
So I get what Jalen said. We might have looked a little lifeless, a little, shell shook, because that's not something we really experienced all year, even with, with a flat tire, essentially,
Super
but the secondary is new. Secondary is going to be a few new pieces coming in. We're young, but I think we have enough depth to make up for it. So, we'll see.
Yeah, and super thin last year. We can talk about it all day. It's true. It was super thin. On big level talent. It wasn't like we were just super thin on depth.
No,
we were
our best player.
Big level talent, man. Like, you're losing. I mean, how much productivity? I mean, it's easy for Jalen to say that but flip the script, man. I mean, he remember, not just 364 days before that. Does he not remember? The fact that they lost, what's the kid's name from Alabama who was at Ohio State before that? James Williams. That's it.
No, that was
name. He's number one, man. He had a heck of a first half, and went out in the second half, and everybody said, well, if he wasn't in the game, it would have been a different game or something to that manner.
That was Jameson Williams, I think.
Yeah, I think it was Jameson Williams. Yes, it was. So huge. But guess what? Alabama was screaming deal breaker on that one. So for me, I got the secondary as well from Georgia. There was some places we could have gone with this. We talk about make or break. It's got to be the secondary. And my thing is it's not necessarily from a make or break standpoint of concern. It's more of like, does the new talent crew gel? Do they gel together? Does Everett grow up? Does Joel Aguero, like, is he the everybody's screaming breakout year for Aguero? I think anybody in that position, that star position, has been. I mean, it's a cool position for Georgia. How Georgia and Kirby Smart likes to use that star position. So Aguero is going to be a breakout. It's going to be a breakout year for him. A lot of people are calling for that. And then also, like, where does KJ fit? Where does KJ Bolden fit? Where does Ellis Robinson fit? There's a lot of question marks. I'd love to see, like, what we're looking at come summer practice and how these layers of depth are going to happen in the depth chart. So I think we're on the same point in that. Let's move to Kentucky really quick. Kentucky, our neighbors to the north, Kentucky. I'm going with, this is the only one I went with. And I think Kentucky, once again, has some make or break parts of their team. But as far as strength in the make or break, I think this is a position that has really hurt Kentucky a lot in the past, and that's the quarterback position. I think Devin Leary was projected to come in last year and just take them to the next level, and he was an incredible flop.
Failure.
And
worse than LeBron.
Worse than LeBron, man. That's probably true. But man, like, talk about a letdown. I mean, you went from expectations of a Devin Leary at NC State, and you ended up getting a try-hard game manager, and it didn't really work out. And so Brock Vandegrift, for me, has to come in, and he has to be everything. We know what they're getting in Brock Vandegrift, but it has to be put. It's kind of like the Lane Kiffin comment earlier. You're expected now, Brock Vandegrift, to go perform. Are you going to be able to be that guy for Kentucky? What about you, Fish? Who you got as a make or break for Kentucky?
I hope he has 11 good games next year, man. I hope he averages 400 yards a game for 11 games.
I like Brock, man. Sad to see him go.
I was too, man. I was too. But, it was just the way it worked out. Like, he's got to go get his. He's got to go do his thing, man.
Yeah.
If he
I'm
wants
thinking that you're agreeing with quarterback for Kentucky?
Yeah, I'm going to have to. But, I mean, that was what I would have said if you would have asked me first. I would have jumped right in there with him. Like, I'm looking forward to seeing him play. I want him to do well. I really do.
Yeah, I agree. Totally agree. LSU. I'll hop in on this one first. I put this in parentheses. I put all defense, right?
Yeah.
If I had to pick a defensive group, right, I picked the defensive line. I'll tell you why. I think that the entire defense has to be better this year. You don't have the Jaden Daniels. You don't have the flashiness on offense. And Nussmeier is going to be great, but I got to see it. I got to see what it looks like first. But I will tell you what I know was bad last year was the defense. And so, in my opinion, I picked the defensive line only because of how bad the secondary was. And I feel like LSU has to get pressure on the quarterback this year. They gotta get that defensive backfield to see less of double and triple moves, right? They got to get some pressure to the quarterback, because when receivers have the opportunity to run around in that zone and get open, it's the reason why they gave up in some games 400, 500 yards of passing. So for me, very easy defensive line for LSU. Who you got?
I'm going linebacker.
Yeah,
I'm thinking Harold Perkins, right? Like, he was a little underwhelming last year, right? He's got to step up. He's got to lead that defense. That's their guy. He's the stud on that side of the ball. He's going to have a lot to do with how far that defense goes.
I agree. Moving him back to middle linebacker. Good move for him.
I think so too. I think so. Now he's the guy. He's the quarterback.
Right?
Like, it's his defense. He's going to have a lot of input, a lot to say about where everybody is lining up and everything. The D-line, especially. So calling signals to the secondary, like, that's him. That's his job, right. And he's going to have what he does, how well he performs is going to cascade down to the rest of the group.
I agree. Good move for them. Good A+ move. A+ move for them. Our friends over in Hotty Toddyville, Ole Miss. Who you got as far as make or break for Ole Miss?
I don't know, man. The defense has to show up. Like I might pull a U and just do a whole defense as a collective.
Yeah.
As a collective, they're pieced together now. He got some guys. He got some critical pieces. He got some talent. At least on paper. What we saw last year, anyway, from him. He's got some talent now. It just depends on what Pete Golding can do with his scheme. Was it really his fault at Alabama that Georgia stole a couple of national championships? Like how was it because Bama's play calling on defense was just insanely bad? We'll see. Because now he's got the boys. There's no excuses this year for them.
Yeah, he draws a real I was gonna say all defense is one thing. I was gonna say defensive line, but I'm gonna go secondary on this one. I think secondary on this one is the same thing as LSU. How many yards are they gonna give up? How many big plays are they gonna give up? I mean, Ole Miss is notorious for scoring points. They're gonna score points. But when I look at the team as a whole, there's so many there's so many places you can look and go, there are gaps that people aren't seeing. Quinshon Judkins was not only a great running back for Ole Miss, and we're going to preview each team, so I don't want to go too far, but he was a great blocker for them too. And it could have been offensive line for me. It could have been defensive line. There is some gaps that are make or break for me with Ole Miss because the offensive line too, it wasn't the deal breaker. But I can tell you this, Jackson Dart was running for his life a lot last year. A lot of those I call them near-death, Evel Knievel things that happened to him, man, were offensive line related when there was zero pocket at all.
He could have pressed charges against Georgia for what they did to him last year.
I totally agree with that. I 110% agree with that. So, at the end of the day, I do think that I think as far as Ole Miss is concerned, the whole defense is definitely in play, but the real story is the secondary. They have to improve from last year. You could see a Pete Golding not surviving 3-4 games because if the offense is clicking and the defense is struggling and lanes depending on all you're hearing is Walter Knoll and this, and you're just hearing it go down the line. Prince, I can't even pronounce his name. Prince. You put the last name in there. He's from Florida. A lot of talent coming in. So if the defense isn't got their crap together, Pete Golding could be seeing, a cruise. He could be doing the cruise ship deal very early in the fall. They have great deals on cruises. He might have to take advantage of one. So moving on, Mississippi State. Once again, a lot of things that got to happen for Mississippi State to do well next year. I'm going to pick out of this group the linebackers. And why I went here was, not a lot of returning guys that are from last year's team, period. Lots of transfers. I think linebackers play a key role in the offense, in this defense, as far as controlling the offense and getting them off the field. Levy wants to score a lot of points, high-powered offense, but if the offense is on the field, they can't score points. So I feel like when you look at secondary, I think the linebackers have got to do a great job of stopping the run, helping stop the run, because it's not going to be a great defensive line. So they're going to have to do a really good job of helping stop the run, and they're going to have to do a really great job of covering. And so this is going to be challenging for them. So I have linebackers from Mississippi State. What about you, Fish?
Oh, air raid, wide receivers all day long.
Yeah.
They got to shine. They got to be good. They got to get open. They got to catch these balls. They got to run some good routes. They got to have the wind at their backs. They got to score some points, man. Like they just got to. That this is a tribute to Mike Leach. Bringing back the air raid. I want to see it do well. I really do. I want them to do good. I want at least put up some points. Big numbers. If they get worked over on defense, all season, if they still get beat, 65-42, whatever. At least the offense is scoring points. At least that air raid is still staying true.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. And, this is an air raid, but the great thing for long live the Pirate, by the way, but I think Levy's going to have a little more than a sticky note for his playbook.
Yeah.
So that's always interesting. Missouri, man, Missouri. Lots we could have said about this. I'll let you go first on this. What do you think about Missouri? What do you think is going to be the biggest challenge, make or break them this year, with a very, very easy schedule? And when we get into our beginning of the year predictions, I will tell you that if the SEC gets 5 teams in, Missouri is my 5th team in because of their schedule.
I think so too. Yeah, their schedule lines up for them to really, really do something. Win some games at least. Have good numbers. Look like a worthy playoff team. But that defense is still, even if they do make the playoff, the defense is going to have to make some plays once they do hit the playoff. Whoever that first game is that they get, they're going to be playing probably one of the better teams they've played all season.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
That's why if I'm the coach, I don't want that easy schedule. I don't want what Georgia and Florida and Alabama are doing. That's a gauntlet. But maybe somewhere in between, like a happy medium. You need some challenges. You need some stressful situations. Because that cupcake schedule can really, really do you in at the same time as reward you. With a lot of wins. But still, once you hit a tough game, and you're not ready for it because you haven't seen a situation like that or an offense like that or speed like that all year, I don't know. I think the defense is going to have to step up, shine. They're going to have to, keep the same mentality all year, every game, no matter who they're playing. Kent State or whoever, it doesn't matter. They're going to have that killer instinct out there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny you should say that because when you look at Missouri and I look at this year's team, they're very, very good on defense every year, and there's going to be some names that we talk about later on that are going to be names to remember. And on offense, super talented. I think Luther Burden's a top 10 wide receiver next year going to the NFL. I think Weiss is going to be he might be a day one guy. They have great talent. Brady Cook is going to be challenged this year, in my opinion, in different ways. We've kind of seen what they're bringing to the table. A lot of Missouri's offense was very difficult last year because with the new coordinator not being in the SEC, it was a lot of people's first time really having any tape on them. So a lot of areas we could have put in here, but my key question I think they have is who's going to replace Cody Schrader, right? Outstanding performance last year, over 2,000 yards rushing. I'm sorry, not 2,000 yards last year. That'd be incredible. But a lot of productivity in the running game. So who's going to replace that? I remember watching him against Georgia last year, and just very easy off tackle plays that he was stretching, and just a very smart guy, smart runner. I'm really looking for him to bounce out of the NFL somewhere and come out of nowhere and be like, where'd this kid come from? Well, we knew about him the whole time, but you look at how they went and grabbed Marcus Carroll, who's going to be a big bruising running back for them. I look forward to seeing what he does. And then they had Nate Noel there that was already there, senior there, but Carroll's going to be expected to run the ball really well. But you also got to think about there's a lot of productivity out of the backfield receiving the ball too for Schrader last year. So I think running backs are a make or break because if you can't run the football, then now the pressure becomes Brady Cook. Now you got to get the ball to these big time wide receivers. And I think where Weiss and Burden become very lethal and Cook becomes very lethal is when you can really overgauge the running game and you can have to not focus as much on the wide receivers and the legs and arms of Brady Cook, and that's where they become deadly. So I think their running game is gonna open that up, or it's gonna gear it down for them. So I got the running backs for Missouri. Oklahoma, I'll hop in on this one first. I think Oklahoma's a very easy one. I think total rebuild on the offensive line this year. Not one single person that was on that offensive line last year is back this year. And if you looked in the bowl game where Oklahoma was in there, Jackson Arnold threw for some really good stats, but he had a ton of turnovers in that game because of the offensive line play. He had to do a lot of creating. He had to do a lot of it shows the talent that he could have. So I feel like if Oklahoma they had some transfers come in, once again, transfers have to mesh. I love how Georgia sets the tone with the offensive line. Kirby I mean, he values every position, but that is one position where he's like, this has to be a brother family. This has to be a brotherhood right here, this offensive line, because how we interweave them, how we use them at guard and use them at tackle. And I would say every position pretty much interweaves in and out besides the center position. And it does sometimes, right? But I feel like offensive line's a no-brainer. You think something different, Fish, or you got something, or you got offensive line as well?
Yeah. If you don't have time to do anything, it doesn't matter how good you are. We talked about this earlier with one of the teams. The O-line with Arkansas. The O-line has to block.
Right.
They have to step up. You're right. A total rebuild, man. That's ridiculous.
Total rebuild.
That's a lot to replace. Like, you don't have any cohesion. Like you said, like you called it a brotherhood.
Uh-huh.
That's what that's what it is. Those boys spend all their time together. And all these guys are coming in. They don't know each other. They've never played a snap together. So what's it going to look like? And Jackson Arnold might be great, but we might not know. We might not get to see it because he's going to be too busy running for his life.
I'm excited to see what KJ Jefferson can do this year if they actually have 3 out of the 5 linemen that block for him. So, didn't he end up at UCF with Gus?
Yes, he sure did.
Yeah, that'll be interesting, man. They, they'll see Florida this year. So,
the Gus bus. I've always liked him. I really have.
I think Gus is the next coach of Florida. Don't call me out on that, but
God, I hope not, because that dude
out.
knows how to beat us. He knows how to beat Bama.
Watch out, man. He's right there in that backyard. Coach. And I will tell you what will definitely flag his resume is if UCF beats Florida in Gainesville. So
no kidding.
South Carolina, man. We're gonna speed it up just a little bit. But South Carolina, I think this is really easy. A lot of question marks on defense, question marks on offense. But the biggest question mark I think they have is Lenora Sellers. Extremely talented, great, legs, good arm, had a lot of great high school stats. Is in charge of an offense, though, that doesn't have a receiver that's caught more than 12 passes last year. Just have one receiver that caught more than 12 passes last year. So, as far as Sellers is concerned, it's make or break because he is dual threat. It might be on him a lot. He's going to have to create a lot. And I just don't, in the SEC, that doesn't bode well in the SEC. I think the legs on a quarterback can enhance. We've seen it with Milroe. It can enhance and make the offense even more deadly. But the SEC is not a conference you can rely on your legs to be something that, you can't hop in there and go pick the Atlanta Falcons in the SEC because you got Mike Vick and just go, I'm going to pick quarterback sneak every time. It's just not going to work in the SEC, right? It didn't work on Madden, did it? Right?
No, it didn't. I don't know. Vick was special, dude. 2007 Vick was special.
Yeah. If you remember correctly, though, his arm strength was like a 96, but his accuracy was like 84.
Oh, he could throw it. It was lower than that, I think. I think his deep ball accuracy was high, but his short and mid range was like 70 something.
Right. So if you weren't
handing I was the Falcons because I was Michael Vick in Madden that year. I was waiting in line at GameStop at midnight, bro, with a Red Bull, waiting in line to get that game.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Who you got, South Carolina, man? Anything out of the woodwork I don't know about?
No, I'm going quarterback as well because whoever it is has to be better than Spencer Rattler was. I mean, that dude was atrocious. You want to talk about atrocious? I love that word, by the way. Yeah. He was terrible, and he was supposed to be great. He was supposed to be this and that, but his mentality kept getting in his way. Like his personality just kept causing him to just not be able to focus and get up for these big games, So even they played us, man. They played us hard.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree, man.
They played us a good game for 3 quarters. It was rough. But, then Spencer Rattler did what Spencer Rattler does, and we were able to get some separation, and we won the game.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally agree, man. I totally agree. Tennessee, man, I'm gonna let you go first on this one. What do you think about Tennessee?
We're going total if we're going total revamps. They're put this secondary because everywhere else I think they're okay. The new guy, the quarterback, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name right now. I've had a long day, kind of tired, so I'm not even going to try that because I will butcher it something serious. We'll just go with Nico.
There you go.
He's poised to have a good year. People are liking what they see out of him. They've got some receivers, they got some backs. The O-line is always average or better, which you can do a lot with an average offensive line in the SEC. Might not win 11 games, but yeah, that secondary.
You can be Vanderbilt.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
I think we just took care of Vanderbilt to make a break. So, anyway, sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. The secondary for sure, man, because it's being pieced together again. This is a total revamp. People left. Mass exodus. They have a couple people that were there last year, maybe, but I don't know, man. That secondary is going to have a lot to do with the defensive success this season. Sorry.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think it's tricky because you could say Nico here because it's Josh Heupel, man, and Heupel's always a guy that if his quarterback is not great in his system, the offense looks impressive. But I mean, I watched the game where Georgia made that offense look absolutely, since we're gearing on words, atrocious. And so it can look impressive when you line up, but if it doesn't produce anything, it doesn't really matter. But I actually have I got the secondary as well. I mean, geez, they got laced last year. I mean, and I don't even understand this, man. So 11 players left for the portal or pros. How'd that happen, bro? That 11 players that were involved in that terrible secondary, somebody wanted them. I mean, I guess they weren't going off of talent, but in the pros, but it was a terrible secondary last year. And it's the reason why Tennessee wasn't successful, man. Like Tennessee could score points, but not that amount of points.
Not the least accurate big arm quarterback I've ever seen in my life, Joe Hilton, sorry.
No, whatever right. It was. Joe Milton.
That boy could throw the ball 150 yards. Talk about arm accuracy.
He was aiming for the scoreboard. He would have thrown it out the left side of the stadium. I mean, you're right on point. You're right on point.
He has to take so much off of it to throw these little short, drop offs and or a slant. Like he can't just hurl it in there because those boys aren't about to catch a 95-mile-an-hour fastball over the middle, man.
Yeah, Tennessee they're always my wild card. It's like you hear about them, you hear about this, and you hear about. I mean, I listen to the SEC podcast sometimes, and I hear when they talk about Tennessee, and man, they're always just so perplexed when they talk about Tennessee. And cousin Shane he's actually a pretty big fan of the Vols. He goes by Big Orange Vols on Twitter.
Oh,
but
nice.
Man, he just always so confused when it comes down to actually what you can expect from Tennessee. It's pretty funny, pretty hilarious.
Heupel's going to have to get him a good defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Somebody that can run that side of the ball without him wanting to pay any attention to it whatsoever. Because I guarantee you, he spends little to no time with defense.
Yeah.
I guarantee you. And that probably has a lot to do with the mass exodus we saw. Because how do you lose 11 players to the portal in one position group? That's
11.
Ridiculous.
11,
that's unheard of, man.
I didn't even know
that's nuts.
I mean, that's what 3 strings, right?
Yeah, all positions.
Just bro, not like you can't even field the players to mop the game up. That's crazy. Texas, we're gonna fly through Texas, Texas A&M, and Vanderbilt. Texas for me, not a lot of people would agree with this, but I'm gonna go wide receivers on this. I'll tell you why. I believe where Ewers goes, Texas goes next year. I think talent is there. With Bond, you got Cook and Moore running back. They got to replace, Jonathan Brooks at running back. I think that this is a hidden thing. I'm really excited about SEC previews because we're going to get in depth and talk about these teams and what's their key areas and where they're really struggling. Because there's some teams in here that nobody's realizing that they got to get some things to mesh. Georgia's in there. Don't get me wrong. We talked about it earlier, but But
Yeah.
where Ewers, Quinn Ewers, where he goes is where they go next year. And I think Bond was a little bit, he's a locker room. He's a flashy, toxic guy, right? You're replacing people like Xavier Worthy. You're replacing. I just had a brain meltdown. And Mitchell. You're replacing a lot of solid guys in that wide receiving core with top notch talent. But it's not if they're zigging and Ewers is zagging, right? So I got wide receivers there. I think Ewers will be fine, but they're only going to go as far as those wide receivers take them because Sark likes to get the ball in the air. Who you think? Who you got?
I kind of agree, but I think the wide receivers made Ewers look a little better than maybe he actually is. Honestly, okay. I mean, he had two of the best receivers in college football last year. I mean, Adonai Mitchell had a touchdown catch in every meaningful college football playoff game Georgia's ever had. Yeah. Scored a touchdown, at least one, in every game. That's a big game receiver right there, bro. And Xavier Worthy? What? Like, I mean, I could just step back and lob a ball up in the air in the back of the end zone and let him go up and get it. Or, or Adonai or Mitchell. Yeah. I'm going to quit saying that name because I have no idea if I'm pronouncing it right or not. It's Adonai.
We go with AD. I'm not sure. I think we went with AD for a while at Georgia with him. So AD Mitchell. I agree.
So, and I think Ewers is going to have a short leash. I don't know how hot on his heels Arch is. I know it's Ewers' team going into the season. But if, Sark doesn't like what he sees, do you think he'll pull the trigger? Do you think he'll make the swap? Because I know a bunch of the fans probably want to see it.
I don't think he will. I don't think he'll have to. I think Texas got this cupcake schedule, so they're never going to have to get into that unless it's against Georgia. I do think Texas does play. Does Texas play Alabama this year? I don't think they do.
I don't think they do.
I don't think they do either. But I can agree with you in some efforts. I mean, I don't think he'll have a short lead because I just don't see him ever getting into that bind. I think Texas has a pretty gifted schedule. So Texas A&M, I mean, a lot can be said about this team. I have this team. This is my reminder of what I thought would happen last year at Auburn with Hugh Freeze. I like Elko. I like Texas A&M. I'm going to go ahead and call it 72 days from now. I think that they're going to beat Notre Dame at Kyle Field.
God, I hope so.
I think they're going to, when the 12th man's going to be there. Notre Dame's not ready for that.
But as far as gets beaten in a submission, they have to. They can't be an independent forever, dude. That's just unfair.
If they lose cheating. If they lose that game,
cheating.
Man, if they win that game, they're in the playoffs. Essentially, if they lose that game, they might be still in the playoffs. That's the crappy part about it.
And then they're not even in the ACC, but they play ACC teams. So they're picking like the worst conference in America to play these games because they won't join geographically a conference that makes sense, which I guess you don't have to do nowadays. Right. Because we've got Pac-12 and the Big Ten, whatever, Oregon, USC, they're all flying over here to play Michigan and Michigan State, and Ohio State, and Penn State. That's East Coast, Maryland, East Coast. So I guess geography is out the window. So they could really go wherever they wanted to, but they'll probably do something like, I don't know. They've got to get in a conference, man. I can't stand the fact that they're just not held accountable for that. That doesn't matter when the committee sitting in their room talking about Notre Dame, that doesn't come into play, that doesn't keep them out because, dude, they are playing ACC teams.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're playing A&M, but come on, that's a mid-level SEC team, man.
That's the one on their schedule they were hoping they wouldn't have to play.
If you're wanting to get into the playoff, man, play Bama, play Georgia, play Texas, play Oklahoma, even Kentucky.
Yeah. They'll always be able to secretly claim that none of these teams want to play them. So
I hate that, man. Georgia went up there and beat the crap out of them.
Yeah, no, I agree. And for me, A&M, I think I kind of looked at both. The trenches for me is something that Elko's. I said offensive line or defensive line. I'm going to go offensive line because Elko's a defensive guy. I think they recover a little bit better from Elko with the defensive line. I think, you look at a Connor Weigman, and he had an injury last year, and a lot of the, you look at the quarterback play last year, and everybody was running for their lives. And, yes, you can get away with a good mediocre offensive line in the SEC, but you can't get away with a terrible offensive line. And if I had to say, I would say Arkansas and Texas A&M, and at times Ole Miss last year had some of the worst, and Vanderbilt, but I mean, I didn't really study them a lot last year.
They're just understood bad down there.
They're next, bro. We're gonna make or break them, but yes, I think offensive line for me. What about you? You got anything different?
I think offensive line, defensive line, you could go. I think Elko being defensive minded, like you said, is going to have his defense. Like I said, these specialty coaches got to have their side of the ball in check, right. Always at all times. That can't be the reason you lose a game. That just cannot. That's detrimental to your job status, in my opinion. So yeah, let's go O-line.
Yeah, I agree. All right, man, and bringing in the new year at the 16th team is the Vanderbilt Commodores, make or break.
Just so happens that they're alphabetically the last team too. So
I got the quartier back on here as at the EER. I don't know, man. I could have gone a lot of places. In my opinion,
what does Clark Lee say? What does Clark Lee say to these transfers? Why does he want them? What does he say to them? Now, you got to be a good salesman, dude.
You know what he's saying, man? Be the reason that Vanderbilt turns it around, bro.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all he can say, really. I mean, you got to turn.
I mean, I like Clark Lee, and he might be one of those coaches. You know, you got to be brave. You got to have some stones to take that Vanderbilt job.
I like Mark Richt too, but we all know that Mark Richt was an incredible developer of men, and he was an incredible. He was the culture of that team and locker room, and he was the epitome of an incredible man. But he was getting run over in the football world.
I still go to war. I still go to war for him in some of my Bulldog groups. Whenever I see Rick's name mentioned 5 years later, I'm like, move the freak on.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, come on. Like, leave the man alone. He's a good guy. And you're attacking him. Yeah. You're comparing, just move on. Move on.
I agree. I agree, man.
Everybody forgets how close we were to national championships twice.
Yep.
And if Terrence Edwards catches that ball against Florida in 2002, in Jacksonville, and goes and scores the game-winning touchdown, instead of dropping a wide open pass, we're not having this conversation, and then Aaron Murray choking in 2007 or 2008 against Bama in the SEC championship. That game was to go see who plays Notre Dame for the Natty that year, and Georgia would have had another Natty if Aaron Murray doesn't freak out and doesn't spike the ball. It wasn't fourth down. I think it was 1st and goal or 2nd and goal, something like that. And he just hurry up and snap the ball and tried to throw it to Chris Conley. Chris Conley's like, bro, what are you doing?
Right. Yeah.
And then, I mean, just Rick was a good guy. He was actually a good coach too. Everybody forgets just because he didn't win natties for us. Now it's easy to talk crap about the man because we got 2 in a row. So I don't know. Sorry, I didn't mean to go off on a tangent there.
Dude, no, warranted, because I agree. And, Clark Lee, I think where we're trying to land the plane is I love Clark Lee. I mean, Kirby loves Clark Lee. He's very close to Clark Lee, but, they're looking for a coach to, I think first off, they're just looking for a construction crew that can finish the stadium. And then they're going to try to figure out if they can win football games. The good thing is we don't have to worry about, we don't even play Vanderbilt this year, so we don't have to worry about is the scoreboard going to be there from first quarter to the end. So I got quarterback Diego Pavia transferred from New Mexico State. I know you're like, what? Who? Amongst other needs, but I think it's Diego Pavia. Make or break it. Diego Pavia.
No. I know.
Yeah. No, you're good.
I'm sorry.
So man, like I'm just putting that in there is not make or break. Is I think Pavia is the difference if they win a few games or not. I think they're 0-8 in the SEC. But I think they might get a few dubs outside the SEC. But
hey, we saw this man play a little bit against Auburn last year, right?
Yeah.
They upset Byrne last year. Oh my God, that was a long night for me in my household. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I can imagine.
I had to talk her off the ledge, man. Like
that was where I told you, man. I was talking about how Hugh Freeze, they had some meltdowns at the end of the year, and that was one of those ones, man. Yeah, I can only imagine that, bro. I can only imagine it. So, final thoughts. I thought we have a question like, what are you most excited about, man? Like, what is one thing you're most excited about as we get through media days, and like it's the first headline you want to see from Georgia summer practice? Go.
Nobody got arrested. Nobody got pulled over. Nobody had a traffic citation. Nobody was going 105 and a 35.
Touche.
Bro, that's what I want to see. As a diehard, lifelong Georgia fan, please keep them boys safe. Please keep them off the Uber, Lyft, what Amazon Prime, whatever you got to do. Just catch a ride with somebody,
bro. You go Amazon Prime and from destination to destination. That's a good one, bro. You didn't know that Amazon was starting to do that, did you?
They might as well, man. They might as well. So, I mean, they're all over the place anyway. There's 100 trucks on my street with different drivers every day. It's nuts. It's nuts.
So funny, man.
Yeah, but that's what I want to hear. That's the article I want to read. Georgia, we're this close to the season, and nobody's gotten pulled over in 6 months. Nobody's had a traffic accident or citation, in as many months or whatever. That's what I want to know. That's what I want to hear.
I hear you, man. I hear you. I'm gonna be honest with you. I caught a glimpse of some of the leadership camp stuff that UGA was doing, and I saw a person in that leadership group that we haven't seen a lot of in the past year, and he did not have a shirt on, and that guy looks chiseled and ready to go. I cannot wait to see Branson Robinson on the practice field. I'm excited, man. I've been a Branson Robinson fan ever since he stepped on campus. Ever since I saw him in those sled drills. Yeah, man. I saw him in those sled drills. I felt so bad for him, man, when he tore that patella, man. And so I'm stoked. I love what Rod Robinson brings. I love what ETN brings. But this guy, man, he's the future of that backfield, in my opinion. I think Rod is too. But can you just imagine like a Branson Robinson, a Roderick Robinson, an ETN who's expected to do great things, who ETN's on the All-American team, first team SEC All-American team, along with Carson. Malachi made that, Michael Williams, and then the fifth one was offensive line, man, Tate Ratledge. So
Tate Ratledge.
So yeah, man. So good stuff, man. Good stuff. Fun night. Great content. Enjoyed talking through some make or breaks in SEC, and then we'll see how media days go, man. So yeah, man. Fish, always exciting, man. For myself, for Fish, for all the dog fans out there. Hey, we are 72 days away from kickoff, but guess what? Things you can look forward to are this. We got SEC. NCAA 25 coming out very soon. So you get that'll get the blood kind of stirring a little bit. And then we'll start previewing SEC teams starting as early as next week. And that'll lead us up to game 1 versus Clemson. So super excited. So for myself, Adam Fisher, Dogs Down South, please go like, follow, share, and we'll be live. Everything will be up on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all those podcast platforms 24 hours from now. So thanks for joining. You guys have a great night, and go Dogs.
Go Dogs.